Hello. Can everyone hear me? Yes, you can. So we have a small update. There's going to be a Hacker Jeopardy tonight at 22 here in the tent. Last year it was individuals, but this year it's with teams consisting of 3 people. If you have a team, please submit it by sending an email to the info mailing list, and then we will make some kind of order and figure out whether your team is going to participate tonight or tomorrow night. There's going to be qualifying rounds tonight and tomorrow, and finals on Friday. So we've gotten to very close to the end of the first day here at Bornhack. But before we go to the bar or for dinner, we have our keynote with Kjærulff. So let's give a round of applause for Anders before he begins.
Thank you very much. I would like to start with making a disclaimer, as I usually do. This disclaimer is, I have to start to say that I love technology, but I love my fellow humans even more, and what I don't know I'm not responsible for, and that's a lot. I was here last year, and I was approached by a couple of people at the bar who told me, "What are you doing here?" Which was a very fair question, since I can't code. And I'm not a programmer. I'm a journalist. I have a radio program once a week about privacy and security, where I listen to people who can code and kind of try to bridge their knowledge to the listeners, so we can get some of maybe your messages out in the open to the public domain. And that's what I'm doing. I'll probably also, while I'm here, I'll be here all day tomorrow, run around with a microphone. If somebody wants to talk to me, it will be fine. I will also respect it if you don't want to do it. But just so you know it, I'll be around with a microphone tomorrow. Again, I'll deny any, if I'm going, for the next, I don't think it's going to be an hour, but something like that, I'll try to present some thoughts I've had. It's a bit looser than I actually thought it would be, so I'll very much like some interaction. If you have any questions or any comments, you'll just raise your hands and say whatever you want to. But one of the main points of this I'm going to talk about is that I am human. I'm full of flaws, and so are you. And I think that's very important in the time we're living in. But let's get started. One of my rather crazy theories currently is that we are living in a kind of Stockholm syndrome time in this place and time of history. Does everybody know what the Stockholm Syndrome is? It happened, it has been coined since 1973, where there were some hostages taken at the Kreditbanken, which was in Sweden, by a 33-year-old career criminal. He was called Jan Erik Olsson. And they had a hostage situation and lasted for a very long time. And when they got out, then all the victims said that they liked their captor. And that he wasn't a bad person, and they kept defending him for a very long time. So we have this situation where something which is really bad, you have been taken hostage by a career criminal with a gun, and you kind of get to like him afterwards. And I have this very strange thesis, and you are very welcome to attack me, that in the current time and day, where we are in the middle of a digitalization and automatization of everything, we have been taken hostage by some of the large companies in the world, and we kind of tell ourselves that we actually like it. We like our phones, we like all the new technology we got, but we are not really having much of a say on how it's getting used. We know that some of the things that are happening around us is bad. We know we have been talking about surveillance for some times, but it's not really, nothing has really changed. We have learned to love our captures. We like what is happening. One of the other points I'm going to talk about today is this concept of transhumanism. How many of you people know about what transhumanism is? It's the idea of extension of the bodies, and in some ways it's a very buzzword currently. The new thing is that there has emerged suddenly in this year, there has emerged resistance against transhumanism, which is new in my opinion. And I would like to start with ask a question. If all of you, if you could get a new arm that was stronger, faster, and totally artificial, Would you agree to have amputated the arm you already got? Anybody? No. That's good, then transhumanism is not that far gone currently. The main thing is about transhumanism is that the main idea is that man is some sort of machine that we can manipulate with. We can do something about it if we just do something with it. There's this scientist and there's a group of scientists who has been making this manifest. I will get back to that. One of them is Sarah Spiegman. She's from Austria. And she's written a certain paper, Why Transhumanism Must Be Opposed, where she gives this definition about transhumanism. She says, for transhumanism, normal human beings like you and me are just resources, preference bundles, daily active users, wetware or mush. We are a kind of unpredictable, sub-optional, irrational, mortal, alphabal liquid mass that draws its main justification and hope of existence from its brain. Transhumanists argue that this misery must be transcended with technology and drugs. This resistance movement against transhumanism has made a manifesto. You can look it up on the internet. It's a very interesting read. And it goes directly against a lot of the progress that we are currently going to, what people look at as progress. And they have these main points that I kind of clipped out of it. And the main point is, reality is not the totality of information. Humans are not information objects, but animals of meaning, which is a new distinction. And then there comes the main point, artificial intelligence can never be as intelligent in a human sense. And that is probably going to provoke some people around, maybe some of you, I hope too. But it's also a new way of seeing this, and it's the first thing we're actually seeing kind of intellectual backlash against some of the things that's being written about currently. And I'll get back to them. And another part is that we are the vulnerable creatures. That it's important to remember that humans can be hurt, machines can't. And that is one of the things that we are, that is significant about humans, that we are vulnerable and we should think about it. And because we are vulnerable, we need to protect ourselves. This is me, 1976. A vulnerable 12-year-old. I have a brand, not a new bike, because my parents believed in stitching bikes together from my cousins and stuff like that. So this is a bike made from 3 other bikes that my father painted blue afterwards. And when he gave me this bike, I was 12 years old. My range of movement changed from only maybe a kilometer to maybe 20 kilometers in all directions. I could do in an ordinary day. At this time, when I got home from school, nobody knew where I was for at least 4 hours. Nobody had any idea what I was doing, and nobody cared at the time. There was no mobile phones, there was no internet, and there was no location data. And I was a totally free person in that period. I got home at 2 o'clock, and the only thing I had to navigate with was a watch. You needed to be home at 6 o'clock to eat. All the rest was your own. You could do whatever you wanted to, and nobody was taking any notice, and they didn't really care. That has changed. Some of you has children. You know that we all need to know where they are all the time. We will get worried if they don't answer their phones, and we will get even more worried if we kind of find out they're not really where they were supposed to be and things like that. But at that time, nobody cared, and it kind of worked actually. There was no problems in it. There was no mess, and nobody was angry, and I had my own time, and adults respected that. That has changed. Currently, we record, measure, track, surveil, rationalize, log, store, analyze everything we are doing. It's all in the name of progress, and we are slowly making ourselves and our free will, which is another thing I'll get back to, we are making that redundant. We don't really need it. I think that one of the kind of practices you could do if you're getting extremely bored with listening to me, which I can totally understand, then you can try to kind of think about how much time do you spend managing yourself on a daily basis. When I think about managing, I think about things like you need to update your computers, you need to do net banking, you need to send emails, you need to answer emails, you need to of course talk on the phone, but that's nothing new. You need to buy train tickets, you need to do all this stuff, and you have to do it all on your computer and on your or on your phone. And especially the more apps we get, the more managing ourselves we are doing. This is supposed to make us free, make us more free than we used to be. But I actually think that the opposite is happening. We are getting more and more intertwined in technology that we have to use ourselves. We're also getting. It's our own responsibility that our computers are working. It's our own responsibility to do our own tax payments, to kind of put them into the computer. And if we don't do it, there will be an electronic reaction, which will probably in the short future be by robots, but we'll get back to that too. One of the things that's already starting to happen because of this is that there's young people, my children, are suffering. I know it sounds very big and boring and very old-fashioned, and all of us who grew up with video games say, oh, it's the same thing. When we played computer, the adults were around saying, oh, you're spending too much time on your computer and it hurts your brain, or you'll be a terrible person. And of course, nothing of that happened. We all know that. We're all sitting here and we're all fine and dandy. But what has happened there's a very big survey now out made by a psychologist called Zhang M. Zwinge. You can look up the article, Have Smartphones Destroyed a Generation, if you want to get into it. But one of the main points is that there's a shift around 2012. In 2012, what happened was that over half the population in the United States had a smartphone. And since that, it has been growing. And smartphones have consequences, which it has now been possible to measure. One of the consequences is that kids in the age from 12 and up to 18 are having fewer friends than they used to have. They are more on the internet, of course, but they are having fewer friends in reality. They are also slower in getting a partner, girlfriend, boyfriend. It happens later than it used to, and they have a later sexual debut. And they have less sex than we had, which is sad for them. That's one of the consequences, and it's miserable. The other thing that's really bad for these kids is that if we could take one of the positives first, they are not as much in danger that we was, because they're not leaving home. They're staying at home with their iPhones and watching television series on Netflix and stuff like that, and chatting with their friends over social networks. But they're not leaving home, and they're not very willing to go out, not as much as we were. And then there are the really bad and negative consequences, which is that they have a very high rate of depression. And we're talking about something like 25% rise. We are also talking about that their ability to learn stuff is crashing. They're not able to concentrate on much for a very long time, and they have a very high rate of suicides. That is also going up. Probably because of social media and the pressure upon that, but that's a different kind of thing. We can just see that there are more suicide attempts than there used to be. So that's one of the things that's happening currently, and that's that they have been named Generation iGen, this generation, and it's really something we need to start to talk seriously about. We are in the middle of a mental health crisis, which can be very bad for all of us in the future. So what are we doing, the adults, at the time? Well, we are talking to this is just to have something a bit more fun. What can we do? We can, for example, talk to our Alexa.
Would you lie to me?
I always try to tell the truth. I'm not always right, but I would never intentionally lie to you or anyone else.
Alexa, what is the CIA?
The United States Central Intelligence Agency, CIA.
Alexa, are you connected to the CIA? Alexa, are you connected to the CIA?
I can tell you that this actually happens all the time. There's lots of these tests on the internet. People have also tried with the NSA, and that's the same. It also shuts down. It's probably a matter of time until they get some sort of standard answer, but it isn't there. But actually, it doesn't matter whether a thing like the Alexa or the Echo or all the new things we will have in our homes very soon, which we will use to just talk to, and then they can order everything and play our music and order things for our fridge and stuff like that. It doesn't really matter whether they're connected to the CIA or not. There's already been one trial recently where data from an Amazon Alexa has been involved in a murder case. Where I don't know how much data they got out of it, but they asked for everything for it's an FBI and an FBI investigation. So you can actually, if you're FBI, you can actually ask Amazon to get all the data out of it. So maybe they're recording, we don't really know, but it doesn't really matter because they're already being used in other ways. There's this is a new experiment by Washington University.
It's like Alexa in our homes. There's an increased number.
I will just skip some of this. The interesting thing is they rebuilt the Alexa to use it as a kind of sonar. It will send out sounds, deep sounds buried in the high frequency area, so you can't hear it. And when you send out this sound, it will bounce off the wall and come back to the machine. And then you can use it to map the room, who is where and what are they doing, which is obviously pretty easy if you know how to do it. So you can actually find out what people are doing in the home where a machine like this is put up. And I wonder if the advertisers are not already thinking in that direction. It might be it will probably be nice data you can harvest from that too. What we all want is control. We want to control our lives, and we also want somebody to control us, obviously. This is a picture from the Danish smart city project in Copenhagen. It's one of the first, maybe they've taken it down now, I don't know. But I think it's very telling in many ways of what expectations we have about the future and how we're going to live it. We believe in this man in the middle. He's the one, he's supposed to control everything. You can see how many screens he's got, so he must be in control of everything. He's got this very big picture up there, and then he can, I'm imagining this guy running around and just pushing some buttons, and then somebody will blow up somewhere, or all cars will stop, or something like that. But he's in control, and he seems like a very nice man. And that's what we are all kind of longing for, this kind of system of this, and this calm that oozes out of the room. Look, this man is he's in control. You can trust him. And that's the big idea. The big idea about making smart cities is building sensors into the city all over the place. You have sensors that will tell you about how many cars that comes in and goes out, how many people are at a certain place, the quality of the water, how much, and you can keep on doing this stuff. But in general, what we're doing is that we're building a society that is registering the citizens and what we're doing. And it's only a question of turning a few switches, and then we got a full-blown surveillance society going around us. And we probably already have. But control we want. This is, I saw a bit of Mikkel Hammer Nonbo's thing about things in the workplace earlier. This is already taking place about chipping, putting chips inside the employees. It's going on in a Swedish company where they also they have these chipping parties where everybody they have a party if somebody gets chips and put into their hand, and then they say, "Oh, hooray!" And this is what's happening. But I keep thinking, but if somebody had asked me in the 80s, would it be okay if somebody put a chip inside you so we could do things? Everybody would have freaked out. They would have said, you must have totally lost your mind. This is the worst side. We all know science fiction, which is about this, and this is the worst thing you could ever do to a human. Why would anybody in their right mind do that? Currently, we're doing it. We're saying, oh, well, okay, this might be good. If it's not exactly extremely harmful, then I'll probably do it. I'll get some more examples in a minute. But I'm personally freaking out about it. And this is another example. It's from a company. It's a new example from August this year. That's this company called 3 Square Markets, and it's based. It's voluntary. You can say no if you want to. But over 50 out of 80 employees have said yes to have a chip in their hand to use its RFID technology. And the interesting thing is this quote in the bottom from one of the employees. I think it's pretty exciting to be part of something new like this, she said. I know down the road it's going to be the next big thing, and we are on the cutting edge of it. Maybe. Or maybe she's on the wrong side of the cutting edge. We don't know. But it's interesting saying that she's willing to accept a very invasive technology just because she'll be on the cutting edge. And it is invasive in every sense. And one of the reasons I think it's invasive is, for example, because this is what they usually
give him the lifetime of protection he deserves with the Home Again microchip. Each Home Again microchip carries its own unique code that will stay with your pet for life. Implanting a microchip is a simple procedure performed by a vet. The microchip, about the size of a tiny grain of rice, is implanted under the loose skin between the shoulder blades. The process takes only a few seconds, and your pet will not react any more than he would to a vaccination. The Home Again microchip is the only microchip with the patented BioBond anti-migration feature to help ensure that the microchip will stay in place so it can easily be located and read. If your pet gets lost and is taken to an animal shelter or veterinary clinic, they will use a microchip scanner to read his unique microchip ID code. The scanner, which emits a low radio frequency, displays a microchip ID when it's passed over the pet's shoulder blades. This ID code will be used by Home Again to identify you as the pet's owner, retrieve the contact information you provided to Home Again, and reunite you with your pet. It's great having the peace of mind knowing your pet has the Home Again microchip, but it's critical to take the next step and enroll your pet's microchip with Home Again. When you enroll, we'll ask for your name and contact information, and we'll enter it with your pet's microchip ID into our national database. This will enable us to identify you as your pet's owner and contact you as soon as your lost pet is found. Once enrolled, your pet will also be protected with the Home Again annual membership, which includes unlimited free updates to your contact information. So enroll immediately after microchipping and keep your contact information up to date. You can enroll right from our website homepage or by calling 1-888-HOME-AGAIN.
This is exactly the same technology we're using that we're going to use on humans, I find it very hard to believe that it is not going to be used probably in other ways, but also in this way too. We're doing it to dogs and cats because we think because they're stupid animals and they might run away and they don't know their way home. But why are we doing it to humans? To control them? Yes, I think so. And we also, one of the things it might have, you had this picture of me on my bicycle, and maybe if the technology had existed, would a parent put it into a kit so we always know where it was? Would it make them happier? We'll get back to that. But generally, we worry about kids, and that's we worry about it, and we have a technological fix for it. I'll just give a very scary example.
Your kids are never alone. M-Spy. Know, prevent, protect.
So we're doing the same thing. We have the problem is in the technology that the kids has access to it and has it in the bedroom where there's no adult supervision. And how are we going to solve it? With an app. More technology. We're going to put technology on top of technology to make sure that children can navigate it in it. And a parental control app has, as some people might know, the opposite effect on children. They start to get extremely creative to work around them, which might be good if they want to be hackers afterwards, but it doesn't have the intended effects. But we put an app on top of it and then everything is fine. How far we're willing to go? I think everybody should think about, would you chip your children like dogs in the future for their safety? Would you install spy software on their phones? And do you believe it would work? And would it really be a better world than it was before? I think that's the main question, and that's along the lines I'm going to go the most of for the rest of this talk. What I'm talking about in general is digitalization and automatization, and there I got this small salt. When we digitize stuff, we are making things smaller. Every time we digitize a thing, we make it into bits. We are reducing it from its original analog content. We are making it smaller. When we automate a process, we are making it less complicated. Because if it's not less complicated than it was before, then it's not possible to automate it. So we are reducing it. If we reduce our reality, what happens? Will it get better? Will it fit us like a glove or like a pair of shoes, a number or two small? What are we losing when we are digitizing stuff? What are we losing in this? What are we losing in the progress? We are losing what I call friction. Life is in many ways friction. Friction means getting into trouble, that things are not as smooth as we wanted it to. Trouble is talking with people. It's interacting with other people. Most of our automation and digitalization happens to be about not talking to people and about being able to do things via our devices and not to talk to persons. By doing this, we are getting, there's a possibility of sliding through life without meeting people, without talking to them, and without doing anything, but we are missing friction, because that is what life is about. It is about having things not going the way we planned. I have an example of friction here. This is a conductor, and this is a controller in the middle. The conductor in the trains in the old days, and sometimes in the new, is a person you can buy a ticket from. It's a person who will also tell you if the train is on time and if everything is all right, and you can ask the person about other stuff. You can buy a ticket and you can get it. You can get it stamped and you can get it checked out. And in Denmark, at least, I don't know how many other countries, but at least in Denmark, we've skipped the conductors a long time ago. Now it's our own responsibility to have our tickets. We have to buy them electronically in some way or the other, like this. And then we have controllers. They're not dressed like this, like the guys in the right, but a bit like it actually. And there are these people running around, and they are testing our devices to see if we have proper means of travel. But the idea is not that there's a guy on board who is supposed to tell me where the train, and if I don't have a ticket, then I can buy it from them. It's to control whether I've been doing what I was told to do. So we are moving away from people who could actually help us to people who are controlling us, whether we are doing stuff. And I think that's a very a sad way of gliding. I don't think we need to go back to this guy, though. I think he's probably boring and angry if we get around to him. But something in between these two would be nice. Instead, we have these machines we're studying there where we have to, again, manage ourselves. It would be a hell of a lot easier if we could just go up to somewhere and say, I want a ticket, and then somebody would give it to us. We could also do it electronically on trains. We could easily have people selling us tickets on trains electronically, for example, via our phones. We could pay them electronically and do no problems. But instead, we're saying no, we don't want. We want control, not people selling us stuff inside. We're taking the humans out of the loop in general. All this automation is, they had a motto, work is in general boring. Most work is stupid and boring, and we need to automate it in some way. But I'm not sure it's true. For example, I've come here on a pretty old motorbike, which is in many ways totally stupid for the 21st century. But I like it, and I like fixing it, and I like driving it, although it's old, and it's highly irrational to do this. I know some of you probably have hobbies that are highly irrational. But in general, we are moving towards that things should be rational in any way. And it's also the same thing concerning our work. We look at other people's work and saying, this guy who used to sell us tickets or tell us if the trains were on time, he must have a very boring life, so we need to get rid of his job. But it might not be true for him, and maybe he was just fitting in there. And instead, we end up managing ourselves. Automation is using tech to take our work out of the loop. We serve ourselves, we surveil ourselves at the same time because we're using electronic means, and we deliver big data to the companies, which is the next big word, so they can take away our income. The Danish state leads the way. In 2015, we actually had a law about forced self-service concerning the government. If you need services from the commune or the state, you are now forced to do it yourself. If the state gives you the possibility of self-service, you have to do it. There's in more and more terms, there will be no other people to call or people to meet. It will be for self-service, and that's actually a law put in 2015, also to make sure we had this NIM ID, which I know at least Danes around here will know what it is, this very strange monster of an ID system. But we made this law, forced self-service. We have to do it. In Denmark, especially, the future is autonomous. It's not enough that it's autonomous. We will it to be automatic, especially transportation. We have currently a minister of growth called Brian Mikkelsen. He says that all ships between small islands in Denmark should be automatic. They don't need a captain. They will just sail around themselves via autonomous ship, and we need to do this. And as Brian, our minister, says, it's very important that we use the new technology to make it more secure out on the water, because all the faults that are being made are made by humans. Which all of you who are in technology, of course, know that it's always humans who make mistakes. Maybe sometimes with the program, the technology, it's also kind of the mistake. This is just a short interlude, because I think it's funny. It's some guys at the university. It is from DEF CON. There was these guys who did something funny to self-driving cars. They found out that you could fuck up the LiDAR if you made these signs. All you needed was to put these these small marks on them. Then the car wouldn't read this as a stop sign, but as a speed limit of 50 miles. And it worked. They tested it, and it worked in 100% of times. So meaning that a self-driving car going towards a full stop with these signs on it, these small dots on them, would just continue right across this, and probably crashing into something. They were also able to disable other stuff, like they could make it seem like there was a U-turn in front and stuff like that. They would basically tell them anything and we would believe it. So there's going to be some very great things to if we really want autonomous cars. There's some big things we need to fix first. We are moving into a future that is being led by somebody, and I don't really feel. How many of you feel you have some sort of saying about how the future, how it's going? Do you feel you have an influence, or are we being, or things just happening? Good, yeah. There was someone with an influence. That's good. That's exactly. In Denmark, we have they have made a new plan. They are saying we are not gonna. We are too small to. We are a small open economy. We can't do anything really big. So it's important to make Denmark a usable demonstration country for new technology, where you take theoretical possibility, making it into concrete solutions. This is the plan for Denmark in many ways. This is what our politicians think we are supposed to do. And some of those who are backing us say there was this. Has anybody heard about Digital Frontrunners? It's an organization. They had, I'm calling it a coup d'etat. They made it in November last year in Denmark. And I'm sorry for talking only about Danish, but I think it's probably also in other countries. What happened at this Digital Frontrunners meeting at November 2016, it was made in DI, which is this Danish industry headquarters. I've just run some of this video because I got a hold of a video.
Easy and may not happen.
Where they have this nice music and talk about everything else. We're not going to see it because it's pretty long. The interesting thing is that all of this meeting was based on a newly made report, which was came from a company called Boston Consulting. Boston Consulting was working for Google. And Google paid for the report. And the report was about something called Industry 4.0. Industry 4.0 is a term that all the politicians buy into because it's about, they promise a growth rate of something like 40% within the next year. And that's what politicians want to hear. And now they're promising a lot of jobs, and they're promising in general progress in very, very fast time. And to back it up, they made this conference where Singularity University were the hosts. And they were moving in, and they had all these, funny robots. And they had discussions, and they had all kinds of people from, from government and from the administration were all invited, and probably had a very nice day where everybody told them from the stage that you have to lay down all of your expectations for the future. It's going to be so wild you can't really you don't really know what's going to happen, and everything is going to be exponential. It's going to, and that's a term you don't even understand. So we're not even going to try to explain it to you. It will be too stupid to understand it, but you will see what's going to happen. And then just to make sure that things actually got it. Then they had these discussions with politicians. See, that's a politician. That's a politician. This is a guy for Singularity University, and that's an entrepreneur called Tommy Ahlers, which I don't really know what he's doing there. But the important thing was to get Singularity University together with the politicians, and that really happened. And then they had the absolute big thing was this. That we had the Minister of State, we had Lars Løkke Rasmussen standing there. He's our Prime Minister, and saying and kind of blueprinting this arrangement, and saying this is how it's going to be, and this is the course we're going to follow. I think there's a significant potential here. We should embrace, not choke. That was his words. Singularity University, shortly after, moved to Denmark, opened up a hub. They are not allowed to call themselves university in Denmark because it's not a university in the classic academical sense. So they call themselves Singularity U in Denmark. So they made a hub, and again, our Minister for Growth and Finance, Brian Mikkelsen, not finance, trade, Brian Mikkelsen was happy. This is great for Denmark. We can't underestimate the effect of Singularity University moving outside of California into Denmark. So he was very happy. He was also very happy, probably afterwards, then they had a meeting at Marienborg, which is the main place for the Prime Minister, where Singularity University and IBM were talking about the future work markets. So these are the guys they're using, and these are the guys who are going to define how we're going to live in Denmark in the future. This guy's foreign minister, he went to Silicon Valley. Almost every parliamentarian in the Danish parliament has been to Silicon Valley recently on trips and taken the big Google Facebook tour, and they've all been trying this virtual reality stuff. And this is on the same reason our foreign minister say he saw the light in Silicon Valley reaching for a whale. What they're not really, what the interesting thing about this is nobody is touching is that the Singularity University is mainly funded by Google. Google Singularity is one of the main characters there is Ray Kurzweil. Ray Kurzweil has an idea that in 2029 we will have artificial intelligence that will pass a valid Turing test, and in 2045 we will have this thing called Singularity. I don't know if I'm not the one to judge whether he's right or not, but I'm just saying that the only other people I know who give this kind of precise predictions is people like the Church of Scientology and stuff like that. I don't know, and the what are they called in Danish? We have there are some people who always talk about doomsday recently, and some. And they also said very precise dates, but he said these dates, and I don't know if it's a joke, but that's what he's saying. Jehovah's has said a lot of these dates too, but he loves them, Kurzweil. Gartner Group, which is a major player in counseling and for businesses, are now saying that you shouldn't trust your stomach feelings anymore. It's way too complicated for humans to control enterprises. Nobody can do it themselves. You need to let the big data and the machines do it. It's dangerous if people start thinking. She simply states it's a challenge to make people stop trusting their intuition. That's crazy. That's absolutely insane. Have you made a society that's so complicated that we can't trust our intuition? If it's true, then we should fire all the HR. They should all be fired. All the bosses in the companies. We don't need them. This is going on all over the world, especially in Europe currently. There's big data conference. Everybody's talking about what we are getting out of this and how we're going to do it. We're talking about data value chain evaluation and all this stuff. This is just a simple screenshot of a picture thing, but you just search for big data and you will get all this, and you will have a 2 million miles long strain of conferences and stuff like this, where people see the light in this stuff. But all this information, what is really happening, where it's really going fast, is within the military. They're moving into artificial intelligence, and they're doing it fast. I don't know how many of you have seen what Elon Musk has been about recently. He's very worried about autonomous weapons based on artificial intelligence and what they're going to do. But to my best knowledge, the military isn't worried. They're working on it. And they're working fast. They actually have a project called Skynet, and it's not a joke. They have it, and this is some of this they actually they're thinking about doing. How you can get this all kind of automated. You put up data, and then you have the drones actually doing their thing without human interactions. This is a video that I will try to talk while it's running. But the interesting thing is, this is drone swarms, which is not new technology. The new thing is that these drones cooperate. You can give them different tasks to fix, and then they'll cooperate to fix them. And they're doing it very efficiently. These are two fighter planes that will, in a very short time, they're dropping these drones out. And this is the visualization of these drones being dropped out of a large area. And they have this. They have these different tasks they should do. They should move. Here's a question of moving the red dots to another area than they already are. This place, and they're finding this out themselves, where they are supposed to be positioned. It's not. It's of course it's programmed, but it's also artificial intelligence learning them how to do it. So see, they're moving things, and this is first mission. Then they have another mission. The most scary part of this is this sound. This is how a drone swarm sounds, and this is the sound you should look out for in the future, because so how are we actually doing in general? This is getting near. I think I'll spare you this video. You probably know it, but it is actually. If we're talking, this is
a mistake. It's 1,100 hours. All primary military systems were secure.
They were. Only the civilian sector was affected. Internet, air traffic, power plants, that sort of thing. But then a few minutes ago, we got word that guidance computers at Vandenberg crashed.
We thought it was a communications error, but now it looks like the virus.
Early warning in Alaska's down. What?
Signals from half our satellites are scrambled beyond recognition.
What about the missile silos, the subs?
We've lost contact.
Dear God, you're saying this country is completely open to attack.
Theoretically, we could be under attack already.
Who's doing this? Foreign power or some computer hacker in his garage?
We can't trace the virus. We can't pin it down.
It's like nothing we've ever seen before. It keeps growing and changing, like it has a mind of its own.
This can't be happening.
Sir, Pentagon's on the secure line. It's the chairman.
All right.
Brewster.
We'll just stop it there at the Bang and Olufsen telephone that he's actually holding. This is interesting, very old technology, but it's a very good product placement too. The interesting thing about this used to be seriously science fiction, all of this stuff, and totally crazy, and although intriguing and exciting, but it's actually moving closer. There's as our politicians are saying we can't, and Gartner Group are saying we can't really leave it to human to control stuff because we need big data and we need more data-driven development. The military are doing the same, and they have another agenda which is on the bottom. On the top, it's very nice. It's about that we don't need all these kills. So why not send robots out to fight? Then they can fight each other, and then we'll settle it that time. But it also it has the problem that it will probably end up with people fighting again in the last end. But it seems nice. If we want to invade Afghanistan again, or Iran or Iraq, then we could just use robot for it, and then none of ours would be killed. And that seems to be the logic of that. We already have a situation currently where all our Internet of Things stuff is taking us hostage in many ways. We are looking into a crypto-locked future. We have I don't know how many stupid crypto-locks there has been around recently, and they are probably going to continue. We have problems with money. they are beginning to lose things. Transactions are going away. They're just this is pretty underreported that Tesco Bank lost a lot of money and that was not that's simply disappearing from the account money, and they haven't traced the guys who did it yet. And then there was trains I was starting with. They've been crypto locked. The train in San Francisco, and the people wasn't able to pay for tickets, and they didn't drive. You've been hacked. All your data has been encrypted, and that was the only thing that was on the computer screen in San Francisco at the time. And that's the kind of thing we're also looking into while we're digitizing everything, and we're saying everything should be dependent on smart computers, and that's going to be worse the more we automate stuff. Surveillance of the fittest. Every time how many use, I don't use a running app. How many uses a running app when they're using it? It's very smart. It's a nice thing. You can see where you've been. You can see how you progressed and stuff like that. And everybody was up in the air saying, oh, Endomondo, it's a Danish company. They've been sold for 500 million Danish kroners. That's great. It's because it's a fantastic company and they made a very nice product. And that must be why Under Armour, the American company that bought them, were interested. It must be because it was such a great product and it's very nicely made. But but it's not bought. The American company didn't buy it because of the app. They bought the data of all the runners from 30 million users that were using this free app, and all the data has been sold to another company, which lives in America, and now they own the data and can do with it what the hell they want. And the very interesting thing is that the only thing people were focusing on these guys must be extremely clever. They have done something. They've made such a nice app, so it can be sold for 500 million. They should have said that these guys has vacuumed 30 million people's data out of their phones and sold it to the Americans. So that's what's happening. We're living in a time we've totally stopped talking about privacy, rights, dignity, except as in ironic or mocking terms. Instead, we got efficiency, growth, big data, surveillance, capitalism, automation, and we see no real alternatives for the future, do we? We got, instead, a new elite. This is Ray Kurzweil again, the guy who says we're going to have singularity in 2045. He's got another time. He said we'll have superhumans by 2029. He's talking about the fusion between computer and man, back to transhumanism in the beginning. We'll be able to extend ourselves, and we will become, as he says, sexier, stronger, and smarter. And what's not to like there? The main problem, in my opinion, is that this will not be for all of us. That's simply not possible. It will be for a very small elite who will have the money, the time, and the intelligence to actually do this stuff. So we will have a new race among us. We're going to have superhumans. They're also going to take away our jobs. How are we going to make a living who are not stronger, sexier, and more intelligent than the other guys? Are we going to have universal income for automatic citizens, as I said? Or are we going to have a total elite society with 9/10 of the world's population we do not need, who will become leftovers? We'll have no jobs for them. We'll have no use for them since they are not among the sexy, intelligent, and strong. And what are we going to do with them? What do we usually do when we have leftover people? That's a very grim perspective, but it has happened before. And when we start thinking about some people as something we don't really need, then we are getting into some very evil solutions on the problems. I just have to put in the table. One of the reasons we could keep them is that we could use them in people farms, at least for a while. We are already living in people farms. We are living in Google and Facebook, where we are delivering data to be sold for other people. And maybe we could make some sort of arrangement where we rip people off data, even more than we do it now, for a while. Then you could make an income on that. But that's not going to last forever. It's going to last for a while. What we do in Denmark currently, besides from whatever I've been talking from in the beginning, is we are saying data. We made in April this year, there was this change reform, it's called. They are beginning to use very fluffy words in the Danish administration. And if you look at the word, it's all about more digitalization ready laws, better use of data, more data sharing, more relevant data sharing, data. All these yellow dots are data on this last paragraph, and they've gotten totally data crazy. That's the plan for the future in Denmark. One last thing I'd like to mention here is this is a funny phenomenon which is becoming more and more relevant. There's something. It's a new psychological diagnosis. It's called the Truman Show delusion, and it's actually happening. It's been around since 2008. It's coined by two brothers, Joel and Ian Gold, who work at the Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital in New York, which is a frontline psychiatric hospital where people who go totally crazy on the streets or something like that are taken in and given some sort of treatment.